Hello and welcome to Front Row Racing's track guide for Brazil, known as Interlagos, Autodromo Jose Pache, a couple of different names, but it's Brazil. Now then, for Brazil, it's been a very difficult track guide for me to do this, if I'm honest, because there is unbelievable amounts of oversteer around this circuit, especially through the Senna S's. But in this video I am going to show you a couple of tricks, not necessarily to do with the oversteer, but a couple of sneaky tricks, although some of you may already know about it. Around this circuit you kind of need to be aggressive, but smoothly aggressive. That does help with the oversteer, but you need to be confident in the car, and that's where setup comes into play, because if your setup doesn't make you feel confident, you're not going to be able to get the lap times. Now, for anyone that asks me for a setup, I'm going to say no for two reasons. One, I've spent over 10 hours today trying to get the car set up and work around or work a way to deal with the oversteer, and I still haven't been able to do it. So for anyone that asks for a setup, it'll be no for a couple of reasons. One, I haven't yet got my setup locked down, and two, by the time I have, it will have taken me so long to get there that I think it'd be a bit unfair for me to spend that much time and then just give it to other people. But there we go. Right, okay, so then Brazil. Up ahead of us we have the Senna S's. Now, introduce our good friend Ted Craftsticks. Now, if you didn't see last year's Brazil, it was Bruno Breadsticks that was with us. He can't make it this time because he's been eaten, but there we go. Now, I will apologise if the video is a bit quieter than usual, although obviously we're not moving at the moment, but the reason for that is I'm recording this quite late, so I can't turn the TV volume up too high because I don't really want to piss off the neighbours. I could just say screw it, let's annoy him anyway, but I can't really be doing it with a hassle. Okay, Senna S's. But first of all, one of the few tricks that I said I'd mention. You'll notice around here I don't use 8th gear. We're in 7th here, and you can do this at a number of tracks because of the 8-speed gearbox. Sometimes you don't really need to use 8th gear. Depends on your setup though, and how you put your setup on. But around here you can get away with not using 8th. You don't really get any speed difference keeping it in 7th and using 8th. There's no real difference there at all. But I am finding on some tracks it's easier in the braking zones going down that one less gear, and this particular corner is one of them. Okay, we're going to do the usual thing for the guide. We've done the warm-up lap, we're now going to do the guide lap, so I'll let it play through the corner and then I'll show you what I do. I will admit I don't get all the corners absolutely spot on, because like I say, this track has been doing my head in today, and I would have left it until tomorrow to do it, but then the video wouldn't be ready for some time. Okay, so we've just gone through the Senna S's there. Now, it might not look like there was too much trouble through there, but I will admit I didn't take it particularly cleanly. I mean, we'll play it through one more time at full speed and I won't talk. And that was the reason why. That tiny little kick of oversteer there is enough to cost 0.3 of a second. Straight away, instantly, no doubt about it. And I can say that categorically because I have spent so long going around this track, and when that happens, 0.3 down the end of sector 1. When it doesn't happen, I'm putting in pretty much the same sector times every single time. So that little kick of oversteer makes all the difference through these corners. So you need to drive in a way that to try and make sure that that doesn't happen, or get your setup so that that doesn't happen. For me personally, these corners, especially on the last game, it's a set of corners where you'd get it turned in for this first part and then absolutely nail it through the rest of it. And I can't do it on this game. The grip just isn't there on the rear end. Okay, so what do we do through the corners anyway? Right, you'll see just here we've got the 100 metre marker board, and just beyond it the 50 metre marker board. Now, they're a little out of sync really for this corner. I mean, it's not a glitch or anything, it's just the nature of this corner. Basically, the marker boards are the distance away from where the corner begins, which is just under this red or just before the red Santander sign. The thing is, there's much more distance until you actually get to the apex corner. So these are actually, you have to kind of give yourself another 50 meters to a degree. So this is essentially your 150 meter marker board, and the next one is your 100. But what I tend to do for this particular corner is we ignore the 100 meter marker board, we ignore the 50 meter marker board. Now you can see, like, we're just passing the 50 meter marker board now. It's obviously not 50 meters all the way down to the apex over there. It's 50 meters to just about this point here, but then there's another 50 meters until the apex. But there we go. So what do you use for a breaking point? Well, at the moment I'm using this P0 sign. Well, I'm not using it, that just happens to be where I'm braking. But yeah, I mean, use that as your braking point. Is very, very handy. Now, you don't want to brake too hard for this corner, because you don't want to get slowed down too soon or lock it up. At the same time, you do not want to end up going straight on or getting wheels on the grass here. So be careful as to how much road you use here, and bear in mind, if you want to take a late turn in, you're going to have to start turning in with the curvature of the track. Now, for the turning point for the apex of the corner, you can use one of two things. You can start turning at this red line, turn in slightly, or you can turn in at the shadow, or somewhere in between, which is what I'm doing. So we start turning on the red bit just to go with the curvature of the road. Now we're over the shadow, we start turning in for the corner. Now, this apex corner, it used to be a curb that you could really sort of use and abuse. I'd say not so much in these cars. Every time I've got myself using a lot of this curb, it's kicking the rear out and losing more than 0.3 of a second. So be careful on this curb. My aim is to get around this corner, get the car into this position with the wheels straight and floor it. That is the ideal aim for this corner, because if your wheels are straight and you can floor it and you've got the grip, you can then floor it all the way around here. You want to be aggressive through here, but you've got to be sort of cautiously aggressive. Now you'll see that we have the kick of oversteer right now as I'm trying to get on the power, so slow-mo catch that. But you'll notice I'm not steering the other way to catch it again, because I want to keep it turned in for the corner. So if you do have a moment there, try not backing out of it too much, because yes, you've lost a bit of time, but also don't try gaining that time back on these next few corners. The time has gone. You're not going to get it back. Okay, for turn 2, yes, you can use some of this curb, but do not use too much of it. Don't go getting yourself an ETL over here. Now hopefully at this point we should just about be flat out. You see the car still sliding about a bit, which is why you see a bit of odd steering action, and we're going to run slightly wide here now. Personally, I don't like using this curb here. It tends to unbalance the car, and you can't get accelerated as quickly as I would like. So personally, I don't like using the curb. On the other hand, if you end up running wide a bit like I have, you could have to use the curb. But turn 3 now is absolutely flat out, and this corner is known as Curva do Sol, which is going to lead us on to Reta Aposta and the DRS activation. There we go. So we pop the DRS open, and then we're heading up to turn 4 and 5, Descida de Largo. A very tricky couple of corners, but two corners that I actually really like. It's interesting because through turns 1, 2 and 3 I've been struggling with oversteer, and through these two particular corners I've actually been very strong, and I expected to struggle more through these two corners than I did the first corner, but there we go. Okay, so turn 4 and 5, one leads into the other, so how you take this one is going to dictate how you take the next one. And in a way, it's not a difficult corner, this, but it's easy to take it too slow, and that's what you don't want to do. I'll bring my notes closer to me because I did write down a few notes about these particular corners. Okay, so the braking point, or I mean, you'll notice again I've kept it in 7th gear down to this point. It makes it easier in the braking zone. Okay, so as we approach the 100 metre marker board, I'm going to get ready to do a downshift and get on the brakes. So I am now slowing the car down, I'm on the brakes, I'm not braking hard. You don't need to for this corner unless you're braking late, and if you're braking late you're going to go through it slow. Okay, so 100 meter marker board is your beginning to slow down point. You'll see now we're down into 6th gear, and we're going to go down into 5th, down to 4th. Now at this point I will say the game says you should be taking this corner in 4th gear. Now I've been trying it all day long and it's not bad, but it's not that good either. Personally I'm finding 3rd gear is much more stable and much faster. So I'm going to continue now down to 3rd gear, and then it's all about the turn-in point. Now you'll see I have got a little bit of steering on, but that's to make sure I don't get on the grass. But what you can use as your main turn-in point is we've got a tyre mark here and then a brake. You can use this just here, this gap here. This is your main turn-in point. So by the time you get here you want the car down into 3rd gear and then turn in. Doing it this way means that you can take this corner with a minimum apex speed of 110 mile an hour. If you brake later, brake harder, try taking it in 3rd still or even in 4th, your minimum apex speed is going to be about 100 to 105 mile an hour. So you're going to lose out straight away. So what you gain by braking late, you're going to lose in the corner. So brake that little bit earlier, brake that little bit less, and carry the speed through the corner. And also, doing it in 3rd gear means we can stay on the throttle. I mean, the revs have just dipped off, but as we get to the apex we're still on the throttle, and now we can really power through the corner. You can use this apex curb, don't be afraid of it, just don't use too much. It's the exit curb you want to be concerned about. Do not use too much of this exit curb. I'm sure we all know it's all too easy to get on this bit and end up in that wall over there, and you don't want to do that. Excuse me. So yeah, try and take turn 4, carrying the speed and power through it in 3rd gear. I'll play it through it at full speed again. Nice and early on the power, and turn 5 is absolutely flat out. Now heading up to turn 6 and 7, two tricky corners that then lead into the Mickey Mouse section. Oh, excuse me. I know I shouldn't have ate that fish and chips before doing this. Okay, so turn 6 and 7. Again, 2 corners where one leads into the other. I'm just going to pull this back. You'll see that I'm in 6th gear. Okay, let's move forward. I'm in 6th gear here, and that's showing as full revs. I stay in 6th gear all the way up to the 50 meter marker board. Now my speed is still increasing. I stay in 6th gear to help me at the corner. I could easily go up to 7th, but it makes what I'm going to do next a lot trickier to do. So keep it in 6th gear. Approach the corner, get the car up to the left hand side of the track, and then the 50 meter marker board is what we want to focus on. As we get to the 50 meter marker board, as we just have now, keep an eye on the Digi Dash. It's going to go down to 5th gear, and we've not eased off, we've not hit the brakes, we've stayed flat out, just knocked it down a gear. But what we're going to do next is a little bit trickier, because ideally we want to just clip this apex curb and turn it in. But it may mean that around about this point you need the slightest of eases off on the throttle. Get back on the power, because you want to do this full throttle if you can. Like I say, ideally just clipping this curb, and then between this curb and the next one coming up you may need a slight ease off of your throttle, because the car's starting to slide, but now it's turning back in. We can get back on the power, and we want to apex this corner. Use this curb. If your car is not in this sort of position going around these corners, you're going to end up wide around here. Either that, or you're possibly going too slow or too quick. Now I'm getting to about this point doing 150 mile an hour if I get it right, and this is a corner where the game says do it in 6th gear. Personally, if I do it in 6th gear, I have to ease off so much that it's slowing down to about 143 to 45. It's much easier just to knock it down a gear, turn it in, slight ease off, floor it, and stay above 150. This then takes us to the edge of the track, and you want to be careful of this exit curb, and the reason being the braking zone for the next corner. But anyway, we'll go through and play that at full speed again so you can listen to what I do with the throttle. Okay, now we'll play it through these next 2 corners, 2 very tricky corners. This one being Pinheirinho or something like that. Can you tell it's in Brazil? Might as well just call it Ronaldo. And I mean the real one, not the Portuguese one. Okay, so the right hander. Well, your braking zone for this corner all depends on how you exit turns 6 and 7. So for turn 8, if you find that you're running out wide on these curbs too much, you need to change how you're taking the previous corners. Also, you'll find if you're on the curb, it's going to be difficult to get the car slowed down for the next corner. I mean, you don't need to brake a lot for it, but if you are all 4 wheels on that curb, it's probably going to lock up. It's probably going to lock up if you've got 2 wheels on it. So if you have got 2 wheels on it, be careful. Okay, now your braking point, to be honest, it's all going to be on your own judgment. I mean, if you look at the Digi Dash, you can see that I'm doing it at this point, and there is not really anything on the track that I can say, here, I'll brake at this point. But what I will say is, make sure you do it way before these Pirelli signs, because if you don't, you're missing the corner and you're off to go and buy a watch from over there. Okay, so like I say, you don't have to brake hard for this corner, but you do need to get it slowed down. And then it's all down to turn-in point. Well, we've got a nice long tyre mark here where someone's locked up, and then we've got a little tyre mark after it. Use that little tyre mark as your turn-in point, and it works quite well. You see, I've used all of the track from the left-hand side of the road, and then I am going to use this apex curb. Don't be afraid of using it, just don't cut it. Now, this is a corner where you can carry the speed round it, but you've got to be careful with your throttle because of the shape of the road here. It's very easy to lose the rear end. Now into Pinheirinho, the game says that you should take this corner in 3rd gear. Personally, every single time I try and take it in 3rd gear, regardless of what speed, throttle usage I do it, the rear end kicks out. So personally, I'm using 2nd gear. It's just much more stable and much easier to do. But it does mean that as we approach the corner, we're going to have a little sort of ease off of the throttle. It's not a full ease off, we're keeping it on a little bit just to get it turned in until we get to sort of the apex part of the corner, and then we want to be aggressive, get that power down. And this is the annoying part with the game saying use 3rd gear. You can't get the power down. In 2nd you can. So get that power down, be aggressive, get it up into 3rd gear, and you can drive out of this corner. Makes it a lot easier to do. Okay, we'll do those at full speed. And again, just listen to the throttle usage. And then we're into the Bico de Plateau, or Pato should I say, and then into this left-hander. I'm going to get to the exit. That left-hander looks so easy, but in actual fact, as I'm sure you probably know, it's not as easy as it appears. It's a very tricky bloody corner, that one. Okay, so Bico de Pato. Very similar to turn 8 that we've just gone round. Obviously we're on the power here, we're being aggressive, get it up to 4th gear, still be aggressive. Then it's all down to braking point. Well, personally, I tend to use the start of this curb here. As it's gone out my screen, I'm on the brakes. You can also use, if I go the right way, you can also use just before the grass starts. You'll see that I'm down into 3rd gear. I'd say using that as your braking point probably will work quite well, but you've got to be careful of it being a little bit too late. You do not want it. You do not want to brake late here. It's very easy to slide straight on. Okay, for the turning point, again, keep an eye on the road for the tyre mark. You're going to use all of the road here, but then just before this faded tyre mark, we are going to start turning in. Now, want to get up close and personal to the apex curb again, but I'm finding that this particular curb, it used to be friendly. You used to be able to use a lot of it. Not so much in these cars, but by all means give it a try. Either way, you want to try and get your car into this sort of position so that you can power out of the corner. The problem is, again, given the camber of the road, you've got to be careful. The rear end's going to go light. So personally, I tend to do a bit of a short shift to third, and then, to be honest, I'm not really full throttle until I'm into fourth gear and I'm around about here. Now I can go full throttle, and the reason I'm not full throttle before it is, if I go full throttle just at this part of the track, I get such a nasty kick of oversteer that I lose a lot of time. So it's much better just to short shift second to third, use a lot of throttle but not full throttle in third, get into fourth, get to the apex of the corner and floor it. Much easier to do, and you'll see that oversteer moment on a later lap. Okay, so round Magulo and then into Zhongzhou, a corner that I know a lot of people tend to struggle at. And I'm not surprised really, because to be honest, they put the braking marker boards on the wrong side of the track. Why the 100-metre marker board is up here on a hill, I don't know. It should just be over here. It made life a lot easier. But having said that, I'm personally not using the 100-metre marker board as my braking point. I get the car up to 6th gear, and then this is a braking point that's on judgment. Personally, it's about 75 metres, so I'm now on the brakes. I'm doing a downshift. This is a corner again where the game says use third gear, but personally I'm finding it easier and faster to use second gear with a lot of throttle. Okay, so we get it down into second gear, and then before we get to the tarmac, which is just approaching here, some time before it, we're just going to start turning in. So make sure you are turning in before you get to the end of this, or at least at the end of this. Now I'm in second gear, I'm going to carry the speed, I'm on the throttle, and ideally we want to apex this corner around about 85-86 mile an hour. You can use a bit of this apex curb if you want, but I would advise not taking too much of it. It can unsettle the car. Once you're in this position, be aggressive with your throttle, but that's where using third gear is a lot trickier to do, because you put the power down, the rear end kicks out. Be careful on the exit curb. You know what that can do. It can send you to go and see the bras of Petro, and to be honest, it's not what you think it is. So yeah, be careful on that one. And then we're into turn 13, which is flat out, turn 14, which is flat out, and then we're on to the start finish straight. For some reason this bit isn't given a number. Okay, now we're going to have a look at late braking. Now, late braking is something I know quite a few people like to do to try and make overtakes. So it's just what they do. But I will say using big brakes isn't always the fastest way, because they weigh more and it tends to lock your tyres up. So braking late isn't always the best way. Now on this lap, I mean, I've tried doing it for the last couple of track guides. Instead of doing ridiculously late braking, I'm just going to late brake by a little bit, and basically so that I stay on the road but show you how much time it loses basically. So that's what I'm going to try and do on this lap. Just late brake a little bit beyond where I said I would, and that's what I'm going to do from here. So we brake a little bit after the pre-zero. We have to go down to second gear. We've missed the apex of the corner. We're now wide here and we're only just getting into fourth gear. So that braking later by 2 or 3 metres has cost us a lot. Now I'm going to go a bit deeper into turn 4. Braked at the 50-metre marker board. Yes, I nearly kept it on the road, but I was down in the low speed of second gear. Not good. Don't need to brake here, so I'm going to try it flat out in 6th. and this is where you're going. You're going to end up going off wide, so don't take it flat out in 6th. Okay, we don't need to brake here, but we are going to need to up here, so we're going to brake a little late, just after the grass started, and we missed the apex. There's the kick of oversteer I was telling you about. We braked at 50 metres and we're off the track. So be careful about braking late. Okay, for this next lap we're going to have a look at being off the racing line. So if you just use this as your racing line, or if you're going for overtakes, brake at my normal points, just be prepared to slow the car down more. So P0, we're going to take it down to 2nd gear because we're up the inside, but be careful, it gets tricky going on that tight line into turn 1 there. Very easy to lose the rear. If you are side by side, don't be afraid of using a bit of pit lane here unless there's a car in the way. Now again, brake at my normal point, we're going to go down the extra gear. This allows you to carry the speed. Now this particular corner is a tricky one if you go up the inside, because regardless of what you do, the car's going to try and run out wide. Gone down to 4th gear, managed to do it though. You can go up the inside here, still in 2nd gear, and if need be around the outside here. Surprisingly not a bad amount of grip out there. Up the inside into Bico de Pato, can be done. It's obviously an overtaking place people like, just be careful. Junction though, it's one I wouldn't be tempted to chuck it up the inside here, but if the move is on, just take your time in 2nd gear. And if you do find you're going to go around the outside of the rest of the track here, be careful, you can very easily run out of road there. Okay, now we're going to have a look at being back on the racing line, braking at the usual points, and we'll try and get turn 1 much sweeter this time. No kick of oversteer, we hope. Much smoother, much better. No loss of 3/10 on this occasion. Okay, now we're going to head up to Decido de Largo to see how we get on around here. Nice clipping of the apex curb there, using the exit curb, that's what it's there for. I've had to ease off a little more on that one because I was nowhere near the first curb, and I'm away from the apex curb, so that's what missing that first curb has caused. Tried doing that corner in 3rd gear. Let's go back and have a look at that. Tried doing this corner in 3rd gear. Not a lot of throttle, but the rear end went anyway. So try using different gears for some corners. It can help. Now I know on the last game I found actually turn 1 was quicker to take in 5th gear than the suggested 2nd gear by the game, but there we go. Okay, I'm going to head up the Aquabancadas. Apparently that's what this bit is called, and we're going to have a look at excuse me, exceeding track limits, so cutting corners, stuff like that. We don't want to see people doing things like this. Yes, use curbs, but don't abuse them. If you do this, back off. If you're in the FRR League races, back off enough to show the stewards that you are not gaining. Okay, pit exit. The pit exit's a tricky one because as I'm sure you know, you exit your pit box, you go down the road, and then you've basically got an in the pit lane centre S's. Be very careful through there, but at the same time you've got to be aggressive. You don't want to lose too much time. Either way, do not cross this white line on your way out of the pits. If you do, you're getting a penalty, so be very careful. Also, if you are exiting the pits and you've got a car coming up behind you here, just be careful of swinging from there over to the racing line, because the speed you'll be doing could be very different, so be careful. Okay, we don't want to see people exceeding track limits, cutting corners, extending the circuit, so none of this please. Now running out wide there, people may think it doesn't gain you time, but it can all depend on how much speed you take through the corner. Again, we don't want to see people taking too much of these curbs, when that is really taking the mickey, and running out wide there. You don't want to be doing that. Taking too much curb there. We don't want to see you doing that. Tried taking too much curb there, but it wouldn't let me get close enough. So Bico de Pato. I know people are going to use curb there, but don't use it that much, please. The stewards don't like having loads to do. They prefer to say, right, no one's got any ETLs or penalties. Makes life a lot happier. Now running wide there, it's an interesting one because people will think you don't gain an advantage, but if you're carrying the speed through, you are. Okay, pit entry. It's not the most difficult of pit entries, to be honest, but I do know a lot of people like to go down here flat out and turn in the pit lane late. That's not how to enter the pit lane at Brazil. This here is the pit entry. So if you're crossing this white line to get into the pits, you're doing an illegal pit entry. Now, in front row racing, we're a bit of a stickler for this, but it's just because we want people to race fairly. If we let you cross the white line here, then people say, well, why can't I then cross the curbs at Singapore? No, okay. I'm not telling you that this is where I think the pit entry is. I'm telling you that this is the pit entry. So, make sure you get your car, all four wheels, in that bit of road there, not on the white line. Now, the pit entry is there for a couple of reasons. One is if you've got a car behind you and you pull over and get into position here, then the car behind you knows that you're pitting, and it's not them gaining an advantage knowing that you're pitting. What it's saying to them is, do not dip into the pit lane here like people like to do when they're doing a fast lap. They know if you've moved over to the left here, they've got to go wide around here. It's to avoid collisions. Okay. Also, it'd be very annoying if someone entered the pit lane properly and someone else come around the outside and cut in front of them into the pits. I think you'd probably get a disqualification for that one. But there we go. So yeah, be careful of that one. As for dipping this far into the white line in front row racing league races, I don't know what the stewards will say on that one. You may have noticed, for the majority of my laps, I've kept two wheels on the right hand side of the track here, just to be on the safe side, and that's probably what I'll do in our league races. But there we go. Okay, so that's exceeding track limits, pit entry and pit exit, and that's the end of the track guide. It's gone quite quick. It's quite a short one, really. Now, I didn't say it at the start, but these guides are to help those who struggle rather than those who are already really fast. So if you are struggling, feel free to find any of our track guides. I've only got one more to do, and that's for Abu Dhabi in Brazil. And to be honest, I can't wait until I get it done and get it out of the way. I had hoped to get all of these done much sooner than I have done, but such is life. I haven't had the time to do so. If you are interested in joining a league, feel free to contact Front Row Racing on Facebook. That's where we do all of our business. We're still in the process of working out what we're going to do between the end of our current season, as we've got 2 races to go, and next gen. Obviously we don't know when next gen is out, so that can make things a little tricky, but we probably won't do another full season before next gen, so we'll do a few things in the meantime though. Alright, as we approach the finish line, he's been Ted Craftsticks, here to help as usual. I've been Front Row Racing DP. Thanks for watching, and I hope this has helped.